expert testimony, and research. You've heard the maxim, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, the child support system is broken. At least 75% of custodial parents in this country either lack child support orders or fail to receive full payment under those orders. In no other area of financial responsibility does our country tolerate such an abysmal record. Non-payment is especially high in interstate cases. About what needs to be done by both the federal government and the states. For example, child support today is a dinosaur mired in paper, and we have to have a faster, more effective sharing of information or increase in total child support collections. Every American has a stake in the recommendations in this report. Whatever we're able to collect in child support means less money that the taxpayer has to pay on public assistance, and that gives the states more money to meet other needs. More importantly, every dollar of child support collected is a contribution to a child's healthy development, and that means a much stronger, competitive America. I know a number of you have questions about our report. What I'd like to do
has adequate child support. I think the failure to support children in this country is an outrage. It ultimately is an outrage that is borne by taxpayers. Out of the $15 billion in child support, about a third of that is presently not being collected. The bulk of that is in the interstate market, basically. About a third of the uncollected is in the interstate market. It results in many families not having the resources that they need to raise their children effectively and caringly. It means that taxpayers are left footing the bill for those uncollected child support orders. And it means that we have an obligation to intensify our efforts to collect child support. That was really the purpose behind the
state
formation
government
of this
officials and other child support advocates. The Commission has failed children entitled to child support by promoting a continuation of a system of enforcement in the state civil court system. The recommendations will surely promote full employment for attorneys and judges, but it will not promote full collection of child support payments for hungry children. The recommendations promote a system where 50 states enforce and establish child support orders in 50 different ways. This complex and confusing system causes ineffective and inefficient child support enforcement. 50 systems are a duplication of effort.
We think that that's where most of the focus should be. But you do have, I call them hardcore group of people who have the ability to pay child support and just refuse to do so. And we think it's very important to have criminal sanctions for those people. I mean, I think it's important not only in terms of the deterrent effect, but it's important that our country make a statement that non-payment of child support isn't just a moral outrage, but it's a crime that we're not going to tolerate. Yes, Don?
Good morning, everyone. Any parent who is avoiding his or her child support should listen carefully. We will find you, we will catch you, we will make you pay. Our plan said to absent parents, if you're not paying your child support, we'll garnish your wages, suspend your license, track you across state lines, and if necessary, require you to work off what you owe. Child support enforcement is essential to the welfare reform effort, and Congress should include these tough child support enforcement measures in the proposed welfare reform legislation. We should be tough on deadbeat parents, not on innocent children. Thank you.
What's your reading on the balanced budget amendment in terms of passage?
I think it's a close vote.
you talked to
How
Senator
close?
Dunn yet?
I've talked to all the undecided senators.
What is,
That,
what do they
as far
say?
as to the best of my knowledge, I've talked to several anyway.
You think none will hold out?
I think I should let him speak for himself.
What is it going to take to defeat it tomorrow?
I think it depends upon what those undecided senators believe is the right thing to do.
Are you going to be meeting with any of them today or tomorrow, Mr. President? What will you be doing to try and head this thing off?
I'm not sure. I've had extensive conversations with all of them. I don't know what else we'll be doing.
What is high?
The record $703 million in delinquent child support enforcement in 1993 by garnishing income tax returns of parent wages and forced them to pay the child support they owe.
Much to help moms like me collect child support. For many years, my son's father moved from state to state to avoid paying child support. With the help from the child support agency and their new computer system, we finally located him, and now I'm receiving child support every 2 weeks, direct from his paycheck. It is now my great honor to introduce...
I am very pleased to sign a vital new law that shows what we can achieve when we act in the national interest. For 5.5 years now, 110,000 in 1992. Our new national database for identifying deadbeat parents across state lines has found more than 1 million delinquent parents in just the first 9 months of its operation. Before we created this database, deadbeat parents found it easy to avoid paying up by skipping from job to job or state to state. But with this database, there is nowhere left to run. With these and other successful child support initiatives, support evaders in the most serious cases. From now on, if you flee across state lines and refuse to pay child support, you may be charged with a federal offense, a felony offense, and may land in jail for up to 2 years. One way or the other, people who don't support their children will pay what they must. Be the major conflict of the coming months. I still hope that I will not have to sign an education bill or veto one that shortchanges the future of our children. I don't intend to sign it. I hope a veto won't be necessary, but there is no excuse for this. We have a balanced budget. We're going to have a surplus. We have the money. We ought to give it to the children and their future.
Vowing to make Uncle Sam a model employer, President Clinton has a warning for federal workers.
Any parent who is avoiding his or her child support should listen carefully. We will find you, we will catch you, we will make you pay.
Despite the president's new initiative, workers in places like this, the Cumberland County Child Support Enforcement Office, say tracking down deadbeat military spouses is actually easier than gathering an accurate DNA test.
We don't have a problem with the military because...
Paula Blount heads the busy Cumberland County Child Support Office. She says the reason why military deadbeats are easy to track down is often a matter of rank.
Personnel don't wish to cooperate with us, then we'll be in touch with their commanding officer, and their commanding officer oftentimes will come with them down to our agency to make a visit and to try to get things settled in a voluntary manner. And that's the best we can hope for, that things will be done in a voluntary manner.
Last week, Fayetteville reporter Michelle Malden had the story of this family with a deadbeat dad. The agency had a 10-year military record to check for information, and even without a presidential decree, tracked down the deadbeat using tax records.
The picture is getting brighter and brighter for our country's children. The children is what we do the job for. Our primary responsibility is to get the money from the non-custodial parent to the child, and we're doing a better job of that all the time.
As the boxer Joe Louis once told an opponent, you can run, but you can't hide.
The hide-and-seek game Governor Zell Miller is referring to is the search for deadbeat moms and dads, parents who don't pay their child support. An estimated 250,000 parents in Georgia are under court order to make child support payments. Caseworkers use everything from computers to credit cards to find those parents and make them pay. According to the Children's Defense Fund, Georgia ranks 38th in the nation in the percentage of cases in which the state collects any child support.
Governor Miller has adopted a new plan to force parents to pay their child support. He has borrowed a tool from law enforcement, often used and very well known, a list of Georgia's 10 most wanted deadbeat parents.
I want you to take a look at these faces. They are wanted.
Governor Miller, who wants to position himself as tough on any and all crimes, says he plans to plaster these posters across the state and use the media to get the message out.
It's a very serious crime, and we intend to treat these people like the criminals that they are.
On that most wanted thing, 3 of them are truck drivers, one's a restaurant worker, one's a welder. We're not talking about rich people.
Sonny Burmeister of the Children's Rights Council thinks the most wanted list is mostly political. He says the only ones hurt will be these parents' children.
Imagine seeing your parents' picture at the supermarket, at a grocery store, wherever the governor says he's going to post them, and what that does to that child's self-esteem.
But will that plastering of most wanted posters make a difference in the millions of uncollected child support dollars statewide? The director of the state's child support recovery unit says yes.
And in many states, they found that people who were not on the top 10 list came in and turned themselves in, so to speak, in order to avoid the possibility of being on the top 10 list. So
many deadbeat parents are losing their property as the Department of Revenue tries to crack down on parents who aren't paying court-ordered child support. Now those parents are running the risk of losing even more, their business license or even their driver's license.
A lot of people, if they know they're not going to get their driver's license, are going to pay up, or their vehicle registration, for example. I think it'll be very effective.
The power to revoke licenses came from the legislature a year ago, but officials are just now beginning to do it. Maine officials report great success in taking away deadbeat parents' licenses in their state. $13 million was raised in this past year. In Massachusetts, $791 million is owed in back child support payments. And in its battle to collect, the state's put out several most wanted posters. The department's also become computerized so that non-payers' wages are now automatically attached. But with 1 out of 3 deadbeat parents working under the table, many are still hiding from the law. That's why in Rhode Island, officials have now taken the bold step of placing deadbeat parents' names and addresses in newspapers. Neighbors, friends, even family are dropping dimes on those who aren't paying up. It's an idea Massachusetts officials have considered as well.
We essentially believe that when it comes to someone's abandoning their children, that you can't be tough enough.
Their hope is this latest move to take away people's driver's license will be tough enough to bring in the money. In Boston, Gail Huff, News Center 5.
This message is for parents who refuse to pay child support that courts have ordered.
The ads are direct and forceful.
Your driver's license will be suspended if you continue to refuse to pay.
It's part of a media blitz to crack down on parents who refuse to pay child support.
The idea is to get people to pay their obligations. So the measure of success of this program is not necessarily how many licenses actually get suspended. It's how many people bring their accounts up to date, or at least begin making payments when they haven't been making any payments before.
The Department of Revenue took over child support enforcement from HRS last July. They estimate there are over 225,000 deadbeat parents in Florida. If you haven't been paying child support, the Department of Revenue here in Tallahassee will send you one notice, then they'll send you a second notice, and if you still don't pay, they'll begin procedures to revoke your driver's license. Mary Sue Daly, whose ex-husband pays child support on and off, says it will work if the courts cooperate.
I think that maybe the judges are hesitant because if they take the driver's license away, then, or the professional license for that matter away, then there's not the means to get to work to produce the income, but they're not paying anyway, so I don't see what difference it makes.
The Department of Revenue says it plans to make a difference this time when it comes to child support. The comprehensive enforcement campaign will culminate this summer when they begin to arrest deadbeats who consistently defy court orders to pay.
Pay up, or walk, or worse.
In Tallahassee, Joan Murray reporting.
It's estimated there are hundreds of thousands of deadbeat parents across the country. The pilot program is zeroing in on nearly 700 of the nation's worst. They owe $14.5 million in unpaid support. In Michigan alone, the target group owes $2 million of that $14 million. The IRS has now joined local government and will act as a superior collection agency.
The Internal Revenue Service will pursue these cases. We will attempt to collect these delinquent child support payments, and we'll do everything within our power to assist the social service agencies in that regard.
For years now, the Internal Revenue Service has provided assistance by withholding the income tax refunds of deadbeat parents. But now it's pulling out the heavy artillery.
We will now use all of our collection tools to try and collect this delinquent child support. By that I mean we may levy on a paycheck, levy on a bank account. We could go to seizure and sale of a person's assets. That would probably be a little unusual. But we will use all the collection tools that we have rather than just applying a refund.
Half of the nation's worst cases involve deadbeat parents who live in one state while their kids live in another. Now that causes headaches for local collection agencies, but it's no sweat for the IRS.
As it relates to going across state lines, of course, it's much easier for the Internal Revenue Service because we are a federal agency and we're accustomed to doing that. The states don't have that same kind of flexibility, so it's a little bit harder for them. I think this will help them a lot in collecting these delinquent child support payments.
25 East Southern, give it a call.
The Clark County Sheriff and his deputies hit the streets first thing this morning, armed with arrest warrants for 25 men accused of being deadbeat dads.
We need to send a strong statement that parents need to be held accountable and responsible, and they've been ordered to take care of their children, and they're not. And in Clark County, if it takes sending these people to jail to get their attention, we're going to do that.
People like Mark Hertzinger.
My primary thing was drugs. My family was secondary.
Hertzinger owes his 2 children nearly $16,000. He was pulled out of a drug rehab center to be booked into the county jail today. He says he needs help, not jail time, to kick a 10-year crack cocaine addiction so he can hold a job and pay his child support.
I'm not going to cop out on not paying for my children over drugs. But that's crack is a very powerful drug.
The sheriff hopes the message today is that children should be both parents' primary concern. He says when the parents don't pay, the children suffer.
When you see these children, what we've seen this morning, these children are not being properly cared for. They're not being taken care of as they should be.
Minnesota kids have been losing things. Warm clothes. School supplies. Because delinquent parents owe $600 million in unpaid child support. Now delinquent parents are going to lose something. Their driver's license. Pay it or park it.
The state's Department of Revenue is cracking down on parents who fail to pay child support, especially self-employed professionals who are licensed by the state.
If they repeatedly ignore their obligation to make child support payments, they stand to lose their livelihoods and their professional reputations.
If the targeted parent ignores the state's warning, fails to show for hearings, and continues to withhold lawful payment, the state will suspend their licenses.
He's just not reliable whatsoever.
Gina Ambers is a 26-year-old Brockton mother of 2 children. Her 9-year-old daughter's father is a barber in Springfield. Gina says after splitting up, the child's father never paid a dime and now owes over $20,000.
It's very stressful trying to make ends meet, being on welfare and trying to go back to school and work and get things for my kids that they need. It's been real stressful.
We went to one Bill Ricca address seeking poster boy Frank Randazzo, an electrician who owes more than $24,000 in child support. His landlord said Randazzo left 2 years ago after stiffing him for about $200 in rent money.
Where we're introducing the 10 most wanted deadbeat parents in New York State. And are we all ready there, Dave? Okay, and this is also going to be on the internet now that this is a high-tech administration. And the first is Lewis Brown. He owes over $125,000 to 2 children in Freeport, New York, and worked as an electrical contractor. Next is Leonardo Almonte. Owes $94,750 to 4 children in Copiague, New York, and worked in restaurants and factories. The third is Craig Hackett. Owes $89,551 to 2 children in Mount Vernon, New York, and works as a truck driver and auto mechanic. The next is Norbert Meyer. Owes $77,825 to 4 children in Voorheesville, New York. Was formerly a policeman and service manager for an auto dealer. Next is Ronald Ayers. Owes $70,401 to 4 children in North Collins, New York. Next is Nicholas Kovalis. Owes $62,613 to 1 child in Riverhead, New York. And Noel Piercy owes $62,000 to 1 child in Buffalo, New York, and was a civil engineer. Michael Thomas owes $61,182 to 3 children in Kingston, New York. Oscar Antonio Janeo owes $56,405 to 1 child in Shirley, New York. And Elizabeth Moore, who owes $53,467 to 2 children in Albany, New York. We appreciate your being here. We think it's extremely important that the media get the message out, that this administration considers failure to pay child support to be a very serious offense against the people of this state. We're not going to tolerate it. We're going to go after the top 10, but we're going to go after every single one of those deadbeat parents who fail to meet their legal, moral, and civic responsibility to their children. So again, Alice, and to all of you, thank you for being here.
I don't want to sleep at night. I worry how I'm getting the next bag of diapers.
Kimberly McCormick depends upon child support to care for 11-month-old Desmond and his 3-year-old brother. She hasn't received her weekly check in 3 weeks. If the money doesn't come soon, McCormick fears her utilities could be shut off, and she may even be evicted.
That's my only source of income.
1 check, 1 location, payment made easier, government working better.
The state is not delivering on promises it made in a media blitz to promote the program. Payments have been delayed to 40,000 families. But 200 child support workers have been diverted to help unravel the mess and answer questions.
And we are working very diligently to try to get the checks out to you.
We again apologize sincerely to all the people that we've caused inconvenience. It certainly was not our intention, and certainly was not a part of the plan.
The plan was mandated nationwide by the federal government. By complying, North Carolina will continue to get $400 million a year in federal funding. But that's a small consolation for people like McCormick, who need their check yesterday.
Where is the money? I need my money.
I was on assistance, and then, I felt like it was better things out here for me, so I went out and I got me a job.
21-year-old Dion Johnson was on welfare for about a year after she had little Corey. Corey is now 3, and Johnson has him at her side at the daycare center where she's employed. Dion started working long before the welfare changes were adopted.
I know that the welfare system is here to help us, but I don't want to totally depend on them if I don't have to.
Dion is still getting some assistance, but she plans to study nursing, and state officials say Dion is a very good example of what they hope to accomplish through the welfare reforms for Michigan, which were approved yesterday at the federal level and take effect today, the start of the new fiscal year. It means recipients have a 5-year lifetime limit for benefits. They must also participate in a state-run job seminar, and they also must look for work, or else they'll lose those benefits.
We're trying to explain to them that we are still going to be here to assist them, but we're not going to be here to do it all, that we're going to be working as partners now. They're concerned about their medical assistance, food stamps, and daycare. Those are the primary concerns that they have spoken to me about.
Justin McCargo's father hasn't paid child support in about 4 years. It's been tough on the boy's mom, trying to raise Justin and his sister without any financial help.
It's been hell.
And a constant struggle.
It's hard, having a very hard time making ends meet.
kids wanting things that other kids have, you know. Excuse me.
Christine McCargo doesn't want a handout. Tomorrow she gets her GED and plans to go to nursing school after that. The mere $69 a month her ex is supposed to pay in child support would be a help, and now she's getting help getting that money.
Sheriff's Department.
Justin's dad is one of about 20 deadbeat parents in Cumberland County arrested this morning, charged with contempt of court because they refused to pay child support. Those 20 parents collectively owe roughly $100,000 in back payments. In order to get out of jail, they'll have to pay up.
And our plans are to do this once every 6 months because there are people that simply will not pay unless we bring them into court.
McCargo says she didn't want things to get this far. She just wants her ex to help support his children.
So I'm angry. And I really don't want to do this because it's bringing out things in me that I try to bury, you know.
Child support officials say there are over 100 deadbeat parents they didn't get to today. Many of them will be rounded up for court on Thursday. In Fayetteville, Michelle Malden, WREL TV 5 News.
I was going to use the finger motion. She was going to use the nose.
They came from the city and from the country to bid on these.
So what were you doing when it was like 10, 11?
We're going like hands in the pockets. I've got 12,000. 12,500.
Not even the Battle of Lexington seemed so big.
12,700.
That's right, $12,700 for 2 tickets for life.
We're trying to get the message out so that enough people would come here, and obviously they brought their pocketbooks with them today.
Farmer Steve Craver from Malta Bend wouldn't bend when the price rose.
Gentlemen, I did have a number, and we were still under it, but I was going to go to a number, and I was going to let it ride then and just walk away.
Instead, he walked to the bank to draw on a lifelong dream to get off a 6-year waiting list.
Guys, I just come off a combine and see a lot of guys a lot nicer dressed than I am, and I thought, well, person I got to go home now and talk to is my wife.
The money goes to pay off a debt owed by a deadbeat dad to his kids.
I hope everybody understands that that's the message we're trying to get out. People who don't pay their child support, we're going to take their most important assets if we need to get that money.
Tell you what, if you're a Chiefs fan and you owe child support in Lafayette County, you better pay it.
One man didn't, so his debt became another man's dream.
Here they are.
And with a signature and a smile, he finally quit waiting for that dream to come true.
See you later, guys. That's right, go Chief.
Failing to pay child support might not be a felony in Florida, but if you miss too many payments, you'll be treated like a felon anyway. A sweep coordinated among all of Florida's 67 counties results in 937 arrests of deadbeat parents. Most were men, but about 25 women also went to jail. In order to get out of jail, deadbeat parents paid out almost $286,000 in back child support.
The sweeps are certainly having an effect because every dollar that's collected by the sheriffs of the state of Florida is an additional dollar into the hands of the children.
The statewide task force made a deadbeat parent sweep in March. Fuchs says similar operations are coming. Deputies arrested parents at home and sometimes at work.
In Palm Beach County, a gentleman was taken into custody just prior to assuming his shift as a Santa Claus at a shopping center.
Arresting parents who don't pay child support sometimes means deputies can close the books on other cases as well. 22 parents were wanted on unrelated charges.
In Indian River County, sheriff's deputies reported when they were closing in to arrest a deadbeat dad that he was in the middle of a drug deal, so they let him complete the drug deal and then charged him with it. Non-support and drug charges.
And if the sheriff's net missed you this time, Fuchs says you might get snagged the next time deputies go casting for deadbeats.
We will continue the arrest efforts, the driver's license suspensions, the wage withholding, the IRS intercepts, and anything else it takes.
In Tallahassee, Pat Rogers reporting.
In a massive sweep covering all of Florida's 67 counties, sheriff's deputies round up hundreds of parents who refuse to pay child support. The sweep started last Thursday and ended over the weekend.
We use this in coordinating the various sheriff's offices.
Here in the State Sheriff's Association headquarters at the Capitol, they're tallying the results. It's called Operation No Support. The sheriffs use a strategy similar to what they've used in past drug raids.
And we arrested over 30,000 individuals. So we use it in both ways in this, and this is a responsibility that we feel very strongly of the parents. And they should be taking care of the children, not you and I.
What we've asked for are for the names of individuals picked up on our writs of bodily attachment.
Steve Horn with the Department of Revenue is tallying the results from a county north of Tampa.
Altogether in Citrus County, we have, looks like about a dozen, maybe 15 who are arrested during this sweep, and several have already paid an amount of money in order to get out.
To get out of jail, many others paid up too, over 400 Floridians, including a South Florida man who suddenly came up with $9,000 in child support payments. Authorities say it's a wake-up call for other deadbeats who may see this and pay up before they are locked up. In Tallahassee, Joan Murray reports.
In Congressman Bob Clement's letter, he asked the Federal Department of Health and Human Services to conduct a comprehensive review of Tennessee's troubled child support system.
So I went probably about 2.5 months without a check, and they still owe me a total of 3 checks.
Julie Malone, a single mother with 2 young daughters, is just one example of how confusing and unresponsive the state system has become.
They have the information, they know that they owe these checks, but somehow the payments are just simply disappearing. So we need to know what's going on.
Almost every agency in town has been getting calls for help. Here at the Southside Enterprise Center, they have a list of names of 7 women who have called in because they haven't gotten their child support and haven't gotten any satisfactory answers from DHS.
I am deeply concerned that the state of Tennessee seems to be holding on to money that rightfully belongs to our citizens.
State Representative May Beavers also sent a letter to both Senators Fred Thompson and Bill Frist requesting a federal audit of the state's child support system.
This is checks that are being poured into a government bureaucracy, and they don't know who they belong to.
Representative Beavers is especially bothered by the fact that the state is cashing the child support checks and then collecting interest on the unidentified money.
Now, there's something not quite right about that. I don't believe that the state should be depositing checks until they know who the check belongs to.
Dana Kay, News Channel 5.
We open those payments.
Tier Technologies gets about 7,000 child support payments in the mail every day. They open them, sort them, bundle them, and enter each payment into the computer. But the state system has problems. Every day, more than 700 checks do not get processed for one reason or another. That's 3,500 families a week who don't get the money they are expecting.
The woman did not get her check.
Tier Technologies President John Kopel says they're doing their part, but some checks can't be matched up with the parent who's supposed to receive the money because key information is missing, or there's a wrong address, or
there's confusion at times as to which payments should be coming to us, and in some instances payments come to us that don't belong to us.
Those checks in limbo have to be researched. To help them speed up research on checks that come in and they aren't exactly sure where they're supposed to go, Tier Technologies images every single check and saves it on a compact disc that will be saved in their archives for at least 3 years. The imaging helps identify which checks go with which parent. But 3 weeks later, some parents are still waiting for the check in the mail.
If you don't have your money and you need your money, there's not a whole lot you can say to soothe their feelings.
But DHS officials say they are considering setting up an emergency fund to help tide over desperate parents until the confusion is straightened out.
We do want a contingency plan so that we don't get people in a situation where they can't feed their kids. That's our #1 goal.
When a parent withholds child support, one person suffers.
I love them and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I just want my daddy to pay more attention to me and support.
It makes me hurt for her and hurts me to see her go without.
Despite a court order, Peggy Parham says her ex-husband has failed to support 8-year-old Lindsay for 5 years. Parham says because her ex-husband lives in California, it's harder to collect.
When I call them, I've been told so many times, we can't touch him, he's out of state. Or California's not working with us the way we need them to. Or California's holding up the paperwork.
Interstate enforcement has been very difficult.
About 1/3 of the cases handled by the North Carolina Child Support Enforcement Division involve other states. And the state is making progress. In 1997, North Carolina collected $100 million from other states.
I don't see any difference between the amount of attention that we should give to an interstate case as opposed to an in-state case. They're all significant and important.
The Uniform Interstate Child Support Act requires states to work together in collecting child support. North Carolina adopted this law 2 years ago, but many other states have lagged behind. The last 9 states just made the January 1st federal deadline to adopt the law, but it may be a while before they apply that law, which means kids like Lindsay will continue to wait.
Kind of sad.
Amanda Lamb, WRAL TV5 News, Roanoke Rapids.
It's failing. It's not working. It's causing more problems than we had.
Words of a frustrated father who says he's a victim of the child support system.
And it's frustrating, too, because they send you these legal documents in the mail saying, well, we need you to come to court and stuff like that. And it's like, I have to go to court for their problem, you know.
Their problem, as Calhoun sees it, is the state's new computer system. Designed to keep track of child support, it apparently lost track of Calhoun's payments. He ended up in jail for non-payment.
Every month, almost $60 million in child support money is processed through this very office. That translates into 340,000 checks that are mailed out. Or are they?
Our new computer system, when payments come in, we'll put some payments on hold for whatever reason, and it's a random thing, and we will and do have to go in manually to release that money.
This stubborn computer system is costing parents on both sides of the child support issue.
Every week it's frustrating to hear a different excuse.
Diane Yarborough is still looking for $4,000 in lost child support.
I know if I was waiting for some money, to be patient is the last thing I want to hear. But that's the thing that we have to say is be patient.
How long is patient? This is going on almost 6 weeks. I need that money. I had to borrow money to pay for my child's tuition, and I'm behind on bills.
The Attorney General's office is working out the bugs of this computer system. Until then, the check may not be in the mail. Pamela Ham, News 36.
Sandra Lineberger depends on her child support checks to take care of her 2 daughters. Recently, 2 checks didn't show up, but this did, an eviction notice. So Sandra immediately called to see what was going on.
Nobody knew where they were. They could not track them down. They could not find them.
Hordes of child support checks are late, a week, even more. So many complaints are coming into the Polk County Courthouse, they had to put in a new phone line to handle them all.
People basically just very upset and wanting to know where their money is.
The answer is in Tallahassee.
We have no control over this, which it's hard for the people out there who are expecting this money to understand.
The state is implementing a new system. Polk is the latest county to go online. Child support checks used to come here to Bartow. Now most will go directly to Tallahassee. Problem is, they seem to be getting lost in limbo. One reason, a computer problem, according to Polk Court Clerk Richard Weiss.
So they're having to do everything manually.
This mess affects 20,000 people in Polk County, 20,000 people who may be very hard up for cash. So the clerk of the court is actually calling local electric companies saying, hey, cut these folks some slack. More than 9,000 checks have come to Bartow by mistake. Some nights, folks here are working till midnight to straighten things out. Sandra eventually did get her money, this time. Now she's worrying about when her next check will arrive. In Bartow, Ken Suarez, Fox 13 News.
Ali Shams took 58 luxury trips to Atlantic City to gamble last year, yet owes over $80,000 in child support, according to the Brooklyn District Attorney Charles Hines. Shams, along with 10 other deadbeat dads, were arrested and criminally charged on Tuesday. All of the men have a steady income and have consistently ignored family court orders to pay up. The combined total they owe their children is over $662,000.
In each of these cases, we're going to require payments as part of any disposition, which include interest. And if any one of these defendants fails to make the payment schedule, I plan to assign experienced trial lawyers, bring the case to trial. If we get a conviction, ask for a maximum sentence, and I'm also going to have the Forfeiture Bureau of this office attach salaries and seize assets.
The defendants can face up to a year in jail for the misdemeanor. One of the defendants, Ralph Lucci, owes more than $130,000 in support for his 4 children. Criminal charges are the latest in a series of efforts the city has tried to catch up with delinquent parents. Deadbeat dads have been offered amnesty, they've had their driver's license suspended, have been denied professional licenses, and are listed in the Internet's Hall of Shame. Officials say a criminal approach to the problem may just be the answer.
It puts real teeth in this effort to make parents live up to their obligations to their children, because these are kids and families who are terribly damaged when they're left destitute in this way.
According to the congressional statistics, only 20% of fathers nationwide pay their child support. Elizabeth Rodriguez knows how tough it is to get by without money from her child's father. She says the more pressure the city puts on deadbeat dads, the better.
They want babies, they don't even support their babies, and they just leave the women, and then they don't give child support or nothing, so they deserve to be in jail.
It's not only here in Brooklyn where officials are getting tougher on deadbeat dads. A new nationwide federal child support program goes into effect Wednesday.
All individuals hired in any type of employment are to be reported to the child support enforcement programs of each state. And all those reportings are being put together into a national database, and they will be available for purposes of child support enforcement.
The system could track down dads that move from state to state and deduct money out of their payroll. But for now, delinquent dads in this city face jail time. In downtown Brooklyn, Janine Aguirre, New York 1.
Maybe I can get you.
Maisie Frazier is just like any other 6-year-old girl, with one exception. Her uncle is most likely President Clinton.
Basically, all I'm asking is to get this over with.
Martha Spivey says the president's brother, Roger, is her daughter's father. Spivey claims she had a brief affair with Roger Clinton in 1990 while he was single and she was separated from her husband.
We've done DNA testing on this. It came out 99.98% positive. He has acknowledged it.
These are the DNA test results, and they do show almost conclusively that Roger Clinton is Macy's father.
Roger Clinton's attorneys did not want the people of Gainsborough, or anyone else for that matter, to know about this. So they submitted Clinton's DNA test under the name Royal Combat.
She wants to see him.
Spivey agreed to keep the results secret until now. Roger Clinton voluntarily started paying Spivey $500 a month in child support last September. But Spivey says the president's brother can afford more. She says he promised to resolve the child support dispute before last year's election, but nothing happened, so she has gone public.
9 months later.
Spivey thinks it's ironic she's having to fight for more money.
President Clinton keeps saying, you know, that the deadbeat fathers, they need to pay their child support, and deadbeat mothers need to pay their child support. I'm just wondering, does this apply to everyone but his brother?
Bernard Scarafoni was working quietly in paradise until his arrest Tuesday night. Massachusetts officials have high praise for Fort Myers police, who nabbed one of the Bay State's 10 most wanted deadbeat dads. They say he's missed about 10 years' worth of payments, totaling more than $50,000, and that he fled his home and went underground just to avoid paying his 2 children the money he owes them.
He's completely abandoned his kids, and but we've got him now, and he's going to have to pay up, or he's going to spend some time in jail.
As part of an aggressive campaign to track down deadbeats, Massachusetts slaps their faces on posters like this one, then tacks them up in bus, train, and subway stations, plus supermarkets and convenience stores. We found Scarafoni's face on the internet. It's a successful approach, helping catch more than 32 wanted individuals in 4 years, and allowing the state to collect almost $500,000 in back child support.
Oh, thousands. Oh, over 50,000.
Cecilia Underwood knows the anguish of a mom whose husband refused to cough up child support. Her ex-husband never paid, and she and her kids were forced to go on welfare.
I couldn't get the kids things that they wanted or needed, clothing, nice clothing. They had to use, I had to go to secondhand stores. You know, and that wasn't right on them. They didn't want to go to school.
Back to Scarafoni for a moment. The judge told him he could bond out of the county jail if he could come up with the $55,000 he owes his kids. But Scarafoni's been working as a technician at a local Jiffy Lube and said he doesn't have that kind of cash.
Yeah, I don't have the money. You don't have the money?
Next stop, Massachusetts. The fugitive is waiving extradition. He'll face a judge and his kids soon enough. In Fort Myers, Peter Kaufman, News 2.
They're always looking for you, but now officers like Michael Walker know exactly who you are. Walker says if you're a deadbeat parent with a civil warrant, you'll have a hard time hiding from him.
1412 Tassie, copy Florida tag.
For the first time, this Department of Revenue deadbeat list is being plugged into the Florida Crime Information Center. If you've been reported for not paying, police can find you anywhere, anytime in the state.
You, Mr. Parker?
The message is loud and clear. If you don't pay your child support, there's no place to hide.
With this new plan, if you're confronted by the law for any reason, for example, speeding or even jaywalking, they'll access the computer. And if you owe, you'll go to jail. Those in charge announced today that thousands of people owe millions combined. But a new law making way for the expanded database is already bringing justice to the kids.
In the first 2 weeks of the initiative, the names began to be entered on October 1st. 160 child support violators have been arrested.
And they say thousands of more arrests are to come to combat what they call a social issue, anything but dead. In Tallahassee, Elaine Rice.
Mohammed Rajib is a man who prides himself on doing the right thing. When his mother suffered a stroke and went into a coma, he brought her home and took care of her himself. And when he remarried to his new wife, Jean, he didn't turn his back on his daughter, Danielle. He paid her child support payments religiously. But then a year ago, Mohammed received a letter from the district attorney's office accusing him of owing more than $18,000 in back child support.
No, I never owe them anything.
And months later, after calling, writing, and hiring an attorney, Mohammed thought he finally convinced the district attorney's office.
They sent me this letter saying that they made a mistake and they have deleted my name from their billing system. But for a few months, after a few months, I start getting notices again.
In fact, it got even worse. A few weeks ago, Mohammed got a letter saying the county was confiscating his tax refund, money he and his pregnant wife were planning to use on their new baby.
Then Mohammed says to add insult to injury, he receives this letter from the Child Support Collection Program, threatening to garnish his wages, attach his bank account, and file a lien against his property if he doesn't pay up.
There doesn't seem to be any way that we can solve this matter. Nobody wants to talk to us. When you call them, they give you different telephone numbers. They're rude to you, and you just don't know what to do.
So we contacted the DA's Child Collection Program, which admitted over a year ago it's been having problems with its new computer system. A spokeswoman said the department was slow in responding and admits it. She said the delay was in the audits and that the matter would be taken care of.
After 18 months, if they can't correct their computer system, then what kind of computer system is it? Spent all this money on a new system and it's just not working. And whose money is it?
The Rajibs will be relieved to see the problem corrected, but they've been fooled before. They say they'll believe it when they see it.
It's now either pay up or get locked up for Florida's deadbeat parents.
There's no place to run. There's no place to hide. You better just pay up.
Child signs legislation that will make it easier for the state to collect money from parents who fail to pay child support. That's good news for Joni Mitchell, but a little too late. Her ex-husband hasn't paid a dime in child support in more than 20 years.
There's a lot of parents like me who've given up the ship out of frustration and just said, why bother?
Florida's new law will be a bother to deadbeat parents, even if they move to other states. 25 other states now share information on deadbeat parents, and scofflaws will also be entered into Florida's crime tracking computer.
We can collect millions, tens of millions, possibly even hundreds of millions of dollars as we go through this process over the next number of years and make people stand for their obligations. It will only assist the state in having to put less money in terms of welfare and assistance.
We're going to increase the pressure on deadbeat parents. We're going to increase the efforts necessary to make parents take responsibility for their own children.
And while state officials talk tough, they continue to hand off the most difficult child support cases to private collection firms. Those firms have collected more than $6 million from parents the state couldn't catch. In Tallahassee, Pat Rogers reporting.
At first glance, this looks to be your average yard sale with the usual toddler's toys, old appliances, and odds and ends. But take a closer look. There's a definite theme here. A 29-year marriage down the tubes and an uncooperative ex.
My ex-husband quit paying child support
I've taken him to court, and I've been trying to get the court to get him back in there, and I can't survive without child support, and I'm just trying to save my house.
In an effort to get back at her husband and embarrass him at the same time, and also to help stay afloat financially, Diane made up this sign, which has gotten great response. In fact, some folks have asked to use it.
It's just gotten great response. I guess there's a lot of people that are in my shoes, and people want to borrow the sign, and they just think it's great. They wanted me to put his name and his picture out there on it.
She didn't, but we will. Here's the alleged deadbeat, Max White, supposedly on probation for allegedly hitting Diana, what she claims started when he hit the bottle.
Drugs and alcohol. He didn't want to give it up, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So.
With the number of Americans on welfare at about 15 million and growing, system reform has been a bipartisan cry, and Republicans are first out of the gate with a bill they say is based on three principles.
Work, personal responsibility, and state control are the keys to unlocking the welfare prison that has kept our fellow citizens trapped for far too long.
The plan would consolidate myriad federal programs into single block grants to states to do with them what they will, require work after 2 years to continue getting benefits, cut people off after 5 years, expect 20% of recipients to be working by the year 2003, deny benefits to single teen moms, legal immigrants until they become citizens, and drug and alcohol abusers, and go after deadbeat parents for child support. Advocacy groups give it mixed reviews.
That is going to push more and more children into poverty. So we may have less welfare, but we may have more poor children.
When I was welfare director of the biggest state in the union in California, I could have done a lot more things for the poor, for the truly needy, if I'd had the kind of authority that they're going to get from the Shaw plan.
The president, for his part, is withholding endorsement till he reviews the bill, but at least promises an ear.
If it promotes work and family and protects children, then I will be favorable toward it.
But Mr. Clinton may have an alternative he likes better. Democrats announced a counterproposal.
We believe it's the most comprehensive, realistic, and workable single piece of welfare legislation that's going to be presented to Congress this year.
The plan, says Deal, promises to be less punitive and more child-friendly. And so the welfare debate begins. Rhetoric will be strong, but so is the commitment to act, prompting most to predict that some sort of reform will get on the books this session. I'm Mary Miller in Washington.
Leslie Johnson's husband hadn't seen his name and address in print this morning, but she sure had, right underneath a headline declaring that he owed child support to his first wife.
I feel like this is a private home, and now our everything's published. We have a non-published phone number just for the privacy, and now our address is published for everybody, and you never know what kind of nuts are dealing with this, or that I think they're going to do something about it and go after these people that aren't paying their support when they really don't know the whole story.
That's what Michael Duran said when we found him in his mobile home, that there was more to the story. He told us he simply couldn't afford to pay his back child support.
Mr. Duran, is this embarrassing to have your name? Yes, it is very embarrassing.
But affording it didn't appear to be a problem at some of the other addresses we tracked down. Charles Conan was on the list and was apparently adding a new addition to his home in Shoreview. And Earl Eisensee Jr. lived at one of the most exclusive addresses in Edina. He told us he can't afford to pay his child support because he cares for his mother.
So you wouldn't disagree that you owe this money then?
Well, I might.
In all, the state published the names of 211 deadbeat dads. To get on the list, they had to owe no less than $36,000 in back support, and one person owes as much as $95,000. But publishing names and getting the money are two different things, as we discovered. When we showed up at the address James Michalke was listed at, his mother told us she had no idea where he could be found, how much he owed, or why he kept giving out her address.
And he's never lived here? Imposing a maximum sentence of 6 months in a federal penitentiary for failing to pay child support, Judge Loretta Preska said Jeffrey Nichols is deserving of the label the poster child for deadbeat dads. Nichols was slapped with the sentence in Manhattan federal court for failing to pay more than $600,000 in child support to his ex-wife Marilyn Kane for their 3 children. He was ordered to hand over the money. Kane believes the sentence is appropriate.
I did not give up. I felt that I could not give up for my children. There was such a need for a sense of justice, and justice did not necessarily being paid every penny that was owed. No, justice meant that you cannot violate the idea that you bring children into this world and therefore you can walk away and not be responsible. This was the justice that I had to seek, if not only for myself, but let's say for anybody that is seeking child support orders.
Nichols took off for Florida and Vermont after being found in contempt by a New York State judge. He now becomes the first person in the Southern District to be convicted under the federal law that makes it a crime to fail to pay support for a child living in another state. Nichols choked back tears as the judge sent him away to the federal prison in Springfield, Illinois, where he will immediately undergo psychiatric evaluation.
The sentence that Judge Preska imposed today, the maximum sentence of 6 months incarceration to start today, sends a strong message to parents throughout the nation who are delinquent in their child support obligations. And the message is this: if you abandon your children, if you take advantage of state lines to avoid paying your child support, you can be prosecuted, you can be arrested, and you can be sent to jail. And as Judge Preska said today, not probation, not a halfway house, not community center, but jail, real hard jail time.
It's a tragedy, what he did. Absolute tragedy for any man, to any person to treat his own children that way, to deny his paternity, to fail to support them. It's beyond belief that anybody could do that.
Nichols is no stranger to jail. He did 4 months in a state prison and was sent back after he failed to comply with the settlement agreement he made with his wife. He was released again just 2 months ago. The former Wall Street investment advisor dabbled in Avon sales and drove a cab in Vermont. Nichols says he can't find a job because of the notoriety of the case.
I think that not only was the proverbial book thrown at my client, but the whole library was thrown at him.
Upon his release from prison, the judge also sentenced Nichols to 200 hours of community service and told him he must make a good faith effort to find a job. In Lower Manhattan, Adele Samarco, New York 1.
Once upon a time, the Abraham children lived a fairy tale life, complete with nannies, private schools, and dance lessons.
Well, frankly, they were spoiled, like kids that have everything.
But when the Abrahams split 5 years ago, everything changed. Sandra Abraham says her ex-husband left their kids to fend for themselves, even though he's under court order to pay a whopping $6,000 a month in child support and alimony.
And when this guy says he pays every week, that's not true, never has been. He's even skipped months.
Things got so bad for the Abraham children that they finally went on welfare. That means they're collecting food stamps and taking advantage of the Medicaid program. The only reason they're able to live here is because their church pays the rent. In contrast, Abraham is living with a new wife and child in the exclusive gated community of Heathrow. That's the home worth an estimated $400,000. Meanwhile, Abraham still owes his first wife and children over $300,000 in back support. Doesn't that $300,000 that he's in arrears make him one of the biggest deadbeat dads in the state?
Yes, but it's a ludicrous, absurd, original order that doesn't touch reality.
The reality, according to Abraham, is that he just can't afford the payments on his $5,000 a month salary. So he's fighting to have them lowered.
He feels sick. The man is unhappy. If he had the money, he would pay it.
I put the radio on and it happened.
Late March, Annabelle Pullis and her kids were listening to Power 96.5 radio.
Going along, and I heard a lot of excitement and yelling and, woohoo, I've won. And they said, tell us what you've won. $10,000. And what is your name? Ray Pullis. And where do you live? Hallandale. And I thought, that sounds like the Ray I know.
Her ex-husband, Rinaldo Pullis, owed her $24,000 in child support over the last 7 years. He just won $10,000 in the radio contest. Annabelle immediately thought, that should be for the kids. So she contacted the Association for Children for enforcement of support. Today, nearly 2 months later, we went to the mailbox with her. $9,994.75. How do you feel?
A lot of different emotions. They're sort of undescribable, but I'm just glad that there's a God and that there's something here for my children.
The money will go into a trust for the children's education. Warren, 11, and Lana, 6, are Ray's kids. She also has a 14-year-old. Her only hope is that her ex takes a greater role in their lives, and not just financially. He hasn't visited them since before Christmas.
It won't change the daily life so much, but it's just somewhat of a victory to know that there's something there, and that you know, sometimes if you hang on for another hour, another day, then the victim has, you know, their victory.
I'm Chandra Bill reporting. I'm Chandra Bill for CBS News.
I have not received one dime since Aaron was born.
Noreen Ilio says her 3 boys are in dire straits thanks to their deadbeat dad. Court records show Dr. Claude Ilio owes more than $6,000 in child support.
Right now, he tells me he's not making any money. I find that hard to believe. To drive a Lincoln Navigator.
Protesters from Parents Against Deadbeats picketed the doctor's office. Some of the accusations on these signs are pretty harsh. Of course, words won't put food in anyone's mouth, but the protesters hope it will put seeds in people's minds.
He is kind of an easy target, I'll give him that. I mean, here he is, a doctor in town. He was just featured in the Society pages a couple of weeks ago, having a good time.
The Ilios split last year when Noreen was 2 months pregnant. Records show he was ordered to pay $800 a month. His year-to-date total is 0. Ilio's office mates try to cover for him.
He has been unemployed since January. He started back to work June 1st. His first child support payment is due June 20th.
Protesters use humiliation to try to force deadbeats to pay. This isn't the doctor's first brush with scandal either. SNN uncovered a criminal charge against Iliou for battery against his wife.
Again, we're not going to comment.
Through his attorney, Iliou says he looks forward to resolving the matter in court. Parents Against Deadbeats hope this will put others on notice. They could be next. In Charlotte County,
$22,000 in child support, but it's been 5 years since she's seen her children. Their father read a letter from each child, first from their 13-year-old son.
Can't really feel anything because she doesn't care. She always tries to make it up to us and then leaves again. I miss her, but she will just leave.
And then the words of their 12-year-old daughter.
My mother is something that I will always care about because she is part of my life and myself. She used to visit, but then it stopped, and it has always been like that.
Zabrowski and his children didn't want jail for Kosh. She'd already spent 73 days behind bars. It was time for her to pay.
It was a choice.
We didn't just pick her out of the blue and decide to make her the poster child for deadbeat moms. That's not what this is about.
Less than 10% of moms are the paying parent when it comes to child support. But whether you're the mother or the father, it's about accountability, and you can always get caught up right here at the Virgil Brown Center in downtown.
We do not want to use harsh remedies on anyone. We want to work with them about paying the court-ordered child support that is due, and we're willing to do that.
It's the same chance that was given to Tracy Kosh, who admits her faults.
Just I love my children, I'm sorry. And with everything he says, I believe is true.
Kosh will work 90 days in a county facility, be on probation for 5 years, and pay off her support.